Hello, everybody. Welcome to the podcast. Here with Adam Old Man Winners. I'm Joe Gould. We're wrapping up our season, I believe, on pre-bankruptcy Marvel with the death of the Incredible Hulk from 1990. Might be the death of this podcast.
Yeah, I tell you what, the Nolan Dark Knight trilogy got nothing on the Bill Bixby Return of the Hulk TV movies. Maybe.
Absolutely.
But I really like this one.
Yeah, I did too. For the most part, I remember as a kid being really bummed that they killed him, and it kind of killed the movie for me. Just 'cause I didn't understand it, and at the time, I didn't buy the death, that it was realistic. I'm a little more buying of the death with this version of the character as an adult, in terms of it being realistic for the character, and it's a good movie for a made-for-TV Marvel movie, at least.
I think it's really close to being a great movie. It isn't, but it has all the makings of maybe the best Hulk movie ever made. It just falls a little short at different points from going all the way.
Yeah, no, I will say, I still think the best Hulk movie is the pilot for the original show. So I will stand by that.
Oh, fair enough.
But you haven't seen it, and that's fine. It's an origin story.
Maybe the best superhero origin ever put on videotape, right? Was there film involved here?
That's probably true. That is probably true. So the movie, as it opened, I said to myself, this looks like Canada. And you know what? I was right. Filmed in Vancouver.
Tax break, I'm sure.
Probably. The opening was a little underwhelming it was like extra bad graphics. Too large and too blurry. This is just the cold open. They do the black credits. They kind of span over Vancouver to this medical facility that looks like a parking garage.
Gene Corps, I think is what they call it.
Gene Corps Lab. And we are introduced to David as a janitor.
Bellamy. I know his social security number. Did you see he had a social security number?
I didn't.
I wrote it down in case I ever want to impersonate David Bellamy, who's really David Bruce Banner.
That's hilarious. And David is pretending to be a simple man.
He is a simple man.
Kind of simple and a mentally simple, whatever the right word is.
An unskilled man, an unlearned man.
Well, I mean, he struck me as more slow than just unlearned. There's a lot of unlearned rednecks out there.
By unlearned, I simply mean the lack of formal educational credentials.
They're also setting him up as very awkward.
Oh, okay. Almost like
autistic.
He's,
like almost autistic or mentally challenged in some other way. I mean, they're autistics. That's so broad. It's probably not fair. But
it does imply they gave him the job out of charity, and they said, "We all hope you can keep it, David." Something like that.
Yeah, because basically he's opening up and there's just itty bitty little speck on the floor that he's just scrubbing and 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 this won't quit. Then after a hard day's work, he goes home and has a good time with his popcorns and his movie.
The American dream right there, according to Carla Ferrigno at the bank teller.
Is that her?
She's credited, as the bank lady. I assume that's Lou's daughter.
I suppose so. I didn't realize that. Did not catch that. So he is working, or he is working there as a janitor, but obviously he's got an ulterior motive, which is pretty quickly gotten to. This movie moves along quick.
There's a line of dialogue in the movie said he'd been impersonating the janitor for 3 months, or I guess not impersonating, legitimately working as a janitor for 3 months.
Yeah, and basically, let me get this guy's name, but there's a Dr. Ronald Pratt, played by Philip Sterling, who is a scientist there, and he's been working on some kind of gamma research that involves healing
or DNA research, right?
Yeah, he wants to save lives by unlocking the power within a human to heal itself via DNA. And
there's a subplot to all that is not fully explored. But there is a government interest in his. I mean, it's a government lab, but there is a military application timeline that is funding and justifying all his work.
Yes, and basically, they want to create all the Captain Americas before the rest of the world creates all their red skulls. Am I right?
Oh yeah, not fully explored. It's a confrontation later in the movie that Pratt has right before the accident in the lab, where you have Dr. Carbino, who's in charge of the lab, and you have somebody from the Pentagon. I guess his name is Crane. I don't know if that's a Marvel character anywhere. But he's talking about the perfect soldier, and Pratt tells him the perfect soldier is a guy who always thinks about going home and writes the letter to his girlfriend because he doesn't want to do anything else. So there's that difference of ideology that unfortunately is kind of dropped because we have a even though the government is sort of set up to be one of the big bad guys here, we have some very vague, fanatical, possibly religious Eastern European terrorist group and secret spy organization that is unnamed.
I say it's the Russians. But yeah.
Well, the Berlin Wall has fallen, right? So,
hey, if you're going to have the Black Widow.
So the difference in this movie and the previous two we watched is that the previous two movies are being set up as TV pilots for other Marvel characters. And yet, in this movie, we have a young lady of vaguely Eastern European origin who, since the age of 14, has been compelled to work and serve in a very vaguely secret spy organization with a lot of shadowy figures, and supposedly her sister is also wrapped into it and maybe being hostage. And her name is Yasmin, but I referred to her as not Tasha Romanov. And I think this movie comes much closer to being a very good adaptation of a Marvel character, better than the other two movies do, just not with the name.
Absolutely. And who would have thought that this movie would have been remade all years later with Mark Ruffalo
Age of Ultron?
and Scarlett Johansson? Yes.
I couldn't get that out of my head. I was thinking, did, what's that guy, Whedon? Did Whedon or somebody else who worked on that movie, when they did the whole Black Widow, Banner, Hulk romance thing, and the sun, hey, big fella, the sun's getting pretty low, did they have this movie in mind?
I doubt it, but it is convenient. And this was released on DVD by Fox. If there's a copyright to that idea, they owned it, I suppose. But
I looked up a little bit of the legal history. Anchor Bay, which they did the previous DVD releases, and they're sort of an imprint of Lionsgate, but they made a deal with Fox in 2004 to distribute their DVDs. So that's why the previous DVD stuff we had was Anchor Bay from 2003, but then this one is 2004 from Fox, which is pretty weird, and they advertise the other Fox Marvel movies on the special features here. It's a lot more bare bones than the previous release.
Definitely bare bones. And it's just trailers for 3 Marvel movies and one other.
Yeah, it ain't great, but hey, the menus are better than the Doctor Strange menu, aren't they?
Well, low-hanging fruit right there.
Oh, it at least has built-in subtitles, which are not perfectly accurate. I did watch it with subtitles, just a few things there, but not every DVD has that built in.
I'm surprised it has subtitles.
Yeah.
So during the day, he's a lowly janitor, but at night, he sneaks back into the lab and works on Dr. Pratt's research and basically fixes the things that are wrong.
I'm not quite sure how he's able to pull that off multiple nights in a row, like he apparently does.
Yeah, so he records audio of Betty. I wonder if that was on purpose.
Yeah.
At the desk saying, David Bellamy's going to go out the back entrance, basically. And I can see how that works once or twice. And he always, as the simpleton, he forgets his thermos all the time. So he's always back for the thermos. Then he uses the message, he's going to go out the back entrance. And I guess that's the whole key. He has to play the village idiot. I say that, I don't mean that it's a downer on people with mental problems, but he plays a very simple person, and he has to, because that's the only way that forgetting your thermos every night is a plausible scenario.
So they have video surveillance, but it seems to be very selective.
Yeah, that's a little plot point that I don't think they thought through.
I only say that because when the FBI agents, again, another very underdeveloped plot, when they're talking to the wife of Dr. Pratt, they show a very brief clip of Banner walking into the lab, which is not even the most recent thing, because they ran 2 experiments in the lab, and nobody got footage of that. Maybe Pratt was the reason the cameras weren't working that night.
Probably. Well, they all got burned up, too.
But some survived.
Yeah. And so Pratt, he's talking to his wife, who's also kind of weird. These guys got, like, Tim Walsh kind of vibes. They're weird.
Goodness.
Anyways, he's talking to his also scientist wife, I guess. She seems to be a jack of all trades of some sort.
She's an artist. She draws horses.
But also does tranquilizers and seems to know all the sciencey stuff. So I don't know. But anyways, he's talking to his wife. He's running on an exercise bike, and she's drawing him on a horse. Must have got some red-brown training on that one. And he's like, I got a problem. And it's like, someone's coming into my lab after hours and fixing everything. She says maybe it's a ghost. But
and
he also says
about that.
Yeah. And he's also serious that he's not going to turn this into security because he's helping him with some very hard research.
Right, and of course, Pratt is on the clock with the government and all that. So if he doesn't have some results, he's probably out of a job or demoted or something.
Yeah. So he kind of just hides out with a big pot of coffee in the shadows, waiting for whoever the helper is to come in. And he sees Bellamy come. He's like, oh, man, they're never going to stick around if they see him here.
It actually assumes he expects him to clean up in the lab, which was odd to me.
Yeah. He shouldn't be able to get into the lab. And then he says, who are you? Because he knows he's not Bellamy. He says, who are you? A friend. Why do you come here in this way? I have no choice. What is it that you want? Tell me something to keep me from calling security. And Bixby says, Banner. Then he's Banner, of course, David Banner. Amy is right, it's a ghost. Much worse than that. And then the doctor poured himself a cup of coffee, says this is going to be good. And he gets the full story of how he experimented on himself. I think it said 12 years ago.
Yes, the line is dropped. He was reading all of the papers of Pratt, and he said he got impatient, and he experimented on himself, and he became a mutant. See, the tie-in with the Fox X-Men. They never knew they were connecting that.
Well, I think they might have said Inhuman, too.
Oh, well, he says, like, the Hulk might have been what we were before human. That was what he speculated. That didn't really go anywhere for the rest of the plot.
Yeah. So in the WWE, you have the American Nightmare, Cody Rhodes. But here, Bixby, or David Banner, declares himself to be the Incredible Nightmare. And then he offers to be basically an experiment for Pratt.
Yeah.
Though he doesn't want Pratt to be able to transform him and observe. Kind of counterintuitive there.
It is an interesting revelation. Maybe you can confirm this. Banner says he doesn't know what the Hulk looks like because he'd never seen him. Does that check out with the series?
That does check out with the series.
Never seen pictures or video or anything else. Interesting.
Well, they never really took pictures.
Okay. Not even the reporter? Yeah.
Well, that's the thing, McGee. They always reported it with eyewitnesses, but no physical evidence. So that's why half the people thought he was making everything up.
There you go.
Yeah. But eventually he relents, and that leads to one of my favorite scenes in the movie, actually. It's pretty neat. But do we need to jump back and discuss the Black Widow?
Oh, I love the Black Widow here. The not Tasha Romanov.
So we're introduced to Natasha.
Not Tasha.
Not Tasha. Playing, was it racquetball?
Yes.
With somebody?
Just some dork who wants to get a little frisky.
She's apparently on some kind of mission. She's got a tape recorder in the back of her pants.
Big old 80s tape recorder.
Yeah, big old one. Which somehow it doesn't fall out. I guess it's taped on while she's playing racquetball.
She's only using 5% of her power.
It's a pretty quick scene. She gets some information from the guy. He gets frisky. She says maybe later. And then she drops off the tape recorder to a cohort. And then the next time we see her, she's taking a shower. Someone comes into her house or apartment.
That's the old guy. His name is Paulie.
Yes.
Not Rocky Balboa Paulie.
Not from Rocky. No. That Paulie was in better shape.
He's not a super bad guy, this Paulie.
No. But he comes in and says, hey, you got to come with me. And they take her to, what is the guy's name? Kasha?
Yeah, it sounds like a lady's name. Kasha.
Yeah. But he's really just a guy in his 50s, it looks like.
And it sounds like he used to be the head guy, but not the really head guy. He's sort of the local, maybe the American branch head guy.
Yeah,
whatever this
seems
is.
like they got some new management in whatever organization. What Shenko is either the industry or the person's name who took it over.
Yes, they referred to the new leader as a Shenko. That's right.
Yeah.
Not a Marvel character, I take it.
I don't think so. So not Tasha wants to retire. And they say, no way, Jose. And she gives them 3 envelopes.
Oh.
One's of a payment for the current job with a bonus.
With a bonus, yeah. Count it later.
Yep. Second one is the new job. And then the third one's a picture. The third one's to be opened first. And it's a picture of her sister roped up. So she's blackmailed into doing the new job. Yep. Yeah, they got Bella all tied up.
Again, I don't know much about Black Widow history, but in the movie they finally gave her in the MCU, she also had a sister, more or less, too. So...
Everything's a reboot. Life's just one big reboot.
And Kasha has a right-hand guy who's apparently an artist in torture, and his name is Zed.
Yeah, he really wants to bust out that paper clip and play with it for a minute.
We never really get to see what he can do with paper clips. You know, the Joker does magic tricks with a pencil, but Zed can make people disappear with a paper clip.
Yeah, well, I think they spent all their budget on the transformation scene in the lab.
That's a good scene.
It was a good scene. So what they want her to do is go and steal all of Dr. Ronald Pratt's research. How the world is really small. And she
Yeah.
needs to do it the next day or two, basically.
And by the way, what do they expect her to steal as far as the research goes?
Apparently 1,000 floppy disks.
She should have come with a bigger bag when she gets in there.
Yeah.
Oh, man. So I complimented the return of the Incredible Hulk because even though it was mid to late 80s, they were breaking out CD technology. And I said, that's pretty good. Yet at Gene Corps, the government facility, they like 3.5-inch floppy disks. And if you got to have all of them to make anything work. Like, do you remember backing up your PC on floppy disk back in the early 90s? Did you ever do that?
Well, not even just backing up your PC. I mean, I had an old Rescue Rangers game on floppy disk, and there was 2 parts. Couldn't play it all at once.
Usually it was like six parts, those games.
Well, that was for the big stuff, like, Doom or something.
Oh, okay. Oh, man.
Rescue Rangers didn't have enough levels.
I don't remember the DOS Rescue Rangers. I remember DOS DuckTales, but...
Well, that's good stuff, man.
DOS DuckTales is a pretty legitimate game, even though it controls terribly. It's a legitimate thing there. I recommend it. Not so much the Roger Rabbit game. That thing was kind of messed up. But...
So one time I had a newer computer and I had a floppy disk and I found my old Rescue Rangers. And I said, I wonder if I can play this. And I installed it and I ran it. And you know what happens when you put one of those games in?
It probably corrupt, right?
No, it played. It was like you injected the Rescue Rangers with like straight up caffeine in their blood. That thing ran so quickly. It ran too fast. It was just like...
So yeah, nowadays the best thing is the DOS box emulator. That usually regulates a lot of the speed problems, but
this is still 10 years ago. This is not like a recent thing, but yeah.
Okay.
I don't know if they even make the things to read floppy disk anymore.
Yes, you can buy them on Amazon pretty cheap. We did it for work. We bought it's probably not super high quality, but you can get them.
I'm
USB
surprised they're
drive.
cheap.
Yeah. I don't know how long they're going to hold up, but yeah. So Natasha, not Tasha, she okay, David has made nice with the family to such an extent that in however long this has taken, he's become like a son to Dr. Pratt. It's kind of weird, but have we skipped anything between the laboratory scenes and not Tasha's arc?
Probably not. Yeah, I don't think so. So I can't recall if they become like a father, son, mother thing going on before or after they observe him.
Oh.
I think they observe him relatively quickly. They do a pretty quick building of a force field. We'll talk about it and then we'll move on. But so they got these devices, they making a circle around him. And apparently it used some kind of magnet. Doesn't really make any sense to me, but a magnet to create this force field that kind of puts Hulk in a cylinder. Not unlike what we saw last week when we reviewed Fantastic Four 1994. Only this one looks a lot better.
You wouldn't think Mr. Fantastic would be able to fold his leg flat or fold his foot and run it under the force field?
No, this one, it looks definitely more solid. Graphically, it looks pretty good.
Yeah, it does.
And they have a tranquilizer attached to Banner's back so that they can put him to sleep if something goes wrong or just if they get finished. And that device is also going to make an incision, and they're going to observe how quickly it heals. So they want to tap into the Hulk's healing factor.
He had already hinted about the titular deaths when he said, and Pratt said nothing can kill it, and Banner says maybe with a catastrophic force, maybe. But then he talks about everything else he's healed from.
Yeah, and they have this like electrical cattle prod type device in there that Banner's going to use to shock himself to turn into the Hulk.
I like that.
Now, as good as the force field looked, I can't necessarily give the same kudos to the electric effect.
But still better than Johnny Storm. Flame on.
Absolutely. No, it's like they took the film and they just hand drew white lines with the white Sharpies and kind of a flicker effect. I mean, it doesn't look horrible for 1990, don't get me wrong. But I think I've seen better electric shock in the Hulk movies, in the Hulk show itself. So I'm not really sure why they went quite so lowbrow on this one.
I like the little simple effect. By the way, how does the tranquilizer pack stay taped to his back after the transformation?
Well, they must have used duct tape.
It was clear tape. Maybe it was a really good kind, and maybe they used a lot of it, but I would expect that thing to have fallen off.
Well, yeah, you'd think so. I don't know if the electricity flowing through him would help or hurt that process either. But yeah. So he hulks up in his white boxers. No pants for the scene. A little PG.
With briefs. I think he's got briefs on, almost. Like a diaper he's got.
No, it's got legs.
Okay.
I mean, it's whatever boxers looked like in 1990. I was 7 years
Right.
old, but Generation 1 boxers.
Mm.
And he hulks up, and the force field holds him in. You get Lou Ferrigno shadow boxing, not making
Looks more
contact with anything, but
confused than angry. But he
yeah.
almost, well, he rips. I thought he was about to rip the thing up from the bottom.
Well, again, I don't think any of the device was what he was standing on. I think he just happened to be ripping up something from the floor. But it does spook the doctor a little bit, and he tells the wife to go ahead and tranquilize him. And she does. But yeah, I mean, he's confused, but he doesn't seem to think those two are a big threat. Put it that way. And she even notes that he looked, in his eyes, she thought he was still human.
Part of you, Dave.
Yeah. So the tranquilizer works, and they show Banner a video of himself, and he's just, I can't decide if he's mesmerized or horrified.
And Pratt is like going over all the statistical details. He's reading the stats off his baseball card while Banner is trying to soak this in.
Yeah. His wife points out, hey, look, Tim, dial down the waltz.
So it's funny here. These movies start with a Donald and they end with a Ronald.
You're
if
right.
we got another one, we could have had a McDonald, perhaps.
All right, so I have a note that after that, then you have the montage of the happy professor and the wife and David working together.
Oh, okay.
Big old happy family. So
yeah, their little green boy. I was thinking the government Pentagon people came next, or maybe another thing with the Eastern Europeans.
So at that point, that's when the professor officially has the disagreement with his leaders, and they basically say they want to weaponize his research for the perfect soldier, and he angrily says the perfect soldier's out of work. And apparently they have enough isotopes for one attempt on the experiment, and he knows they have to do it quickly because they're going to shut down his research.
Yes, and it's crazy bad timing because somehow not Tasha knows this is going to happen. Maybe. I couldn't figure that out.
She did not know it was going to happen. No one was supposed to be there.
That's
what
right.
she even says.
Because they're working after hours. Okay, I missed that line of dialogue.
Yeah.
That would make it a lot easier on her part if they weren't transforming somebody into a giant monster while she was trying to steal all the floppy disks.
Yeah, she's not a violent spy. She's not Tasha is a peacemaker at heart.
I believe she says she's not a killer at some point.
Yeah, she says it a couple times. And she shows it in a few ways too.
We got to talk about her little scene at the dry cleaners with Betty, right?
Well, I agree, but before that, she has another scene, and we're introduced to Mary Jane, not Tasha, in a bar.
Oh, the security guard. I got his social security number too. His name is Mr. Simpson. Yeah, I wrote it down.
Homer J. Simpson.
Tommy, I think something.
So she's got two little schemes she has to do. Now, apparently her big superpower is the ability to impersonate other people.
Accent and everything.
In the first scene, she's impersonating Mary Jane Watson from the 616 universe. And she's basically flirting with this guy at the bar who works at the lab. She gets a drink. She steals the guy's cup. I thought she was Bill Cosby on the guy, but no. She switched drinks, took his cup to the bathroom, made a print, and then changed clothes and hair so he wouldn't recognize her, and then she just walks out. So she's got his fingerprint. So she can use that later to get in and out of the doors.
And, she changed her whole outfit, too, to walk out without him noticing.
Yeah. Even changed her lipstick color.
I don't know why you had to go to that extent, but sure, why not?
Yeah. And then the second part of it is she has to steal Betty's uniform at the dry cleaner. Now, what was the girl's name on, oh gosh, I've lost it. King of the Hill.
Luann Platter?
Yeah. So she's doing her best impression of her.
Played by the late Brittany Murphy, yeah. That's okay.
Yeah.
She says, don't you think dresses should come in food color, like mustard and marinara? Because we always spill them on ourselves.
Yeah. And she gave up wine in the house, though. Didn't want to clean the carpet anymore. But she's talking Betty's ear off, and as she's yapping, she picks up her dry clean but grabs Betty's uniform instead of the thing that she brought in. And Betty freaks out and says, oh no, and doesn't pay and runs out to chase her, but she's already changed costumes again, and she gets away.
Fortunately, Betty has a spare uniform. She can still go to work.
And so on the night of the experiment, I think they do start the experiment. It's supposed to take 12 minutes, and the dose is going to increase over a period of time. And so they've started it when she starts breaking in. These security team, not very bright.
Mr. Simpson is the same guy from the bar, so he's there too.
Yeah.
She blows him away.
So she takes Betty out, doesn't kill her, just puts her to sleep for about an hour.
She even gives her a nice little compliment, like, "You'll be okay in an hour, sweetie," or something like that.
Yeah. And then the other guard that communicates with her on the radio hears some mumbling and goes to check it out. And Betty says, "I'm fine." He doesn't recognize that her voice is different.
Well,
And they don't look the exact same either. I mean, she's dressed up as Betty, don't get me wrong, but they're not twins.
He sees her from a distance down the hallway and says, "Good enough," after the...
Doesn't explain the voice.
No, but Simpson doesn't care. He'd rather be out drinking, thinking about that Mary Jane Watson he met at the bar.
Yeah. So she gets into the lab. The professor, Dr. Pratt, says, "You gotta get out of here. It's not safe." And she says, "You're not supposed to be here." And the professor cuts off the power to David because apparently it's dangerous for people to be in the room. I don't know.
It might be.
Might heal her of her Black Widowisms.
I'm a little curious why Amy didn't show up for this. I guess it's dangerous, right? Even though the previous one wasn't dangerous, this one's more dangerous.
I mean, he wasn't in a suit. I'm not sure what was so dangerous about it. I guess David could have turned to the Hulk, but you know.
Yeah.
So then the professor goes over to keep her from stealing something. I guess he's grabbing her by the hair, and he takes himself out. He pulls the wig off, but falls backwards in the process and knocks himself out and starts a big fire in the lab.
Shockingly, he didn't land on an electric fence like a lot of other people do in these movies. Electric something.
Well, they had already spent their electric budget on the transformation scene. Actually, no, they use it again in a little bit when the Hulk runs away. But anyways, so she's trying to take the files, but she does pull him away from the fire to keep him safe. And Banner sees this prior to transforming into the Hulk.
Hulk is still pretty mad.
Yeah, this is Hulk's third appearance this movie, by the way. 40 minutes in. We're getting some nice little Hulk scenes.
We get 5 total, I believe. More than any of the others.
Yeah, and so she drops all the floppy disk and runs away. The Hulk takes the doctor, carries him to safety. It looks like the entire United States Army arrives.
It is a government facility.
I didn't realize we had so many people in Vancouver.
Well,
maybe it's the Canadian government.
Cheaper exchange rate.
Isn't that a different plot twist if this is a Canadian government instead of the U.S. government?
But they said the Pentagon.
I know, but they're in Vancouver.
Okay, Vancouver, Canada has a Pentagon. That's fine with me.
Okay.
Yeah.
So Hulk chases some guys through the building. Kind of a funny scene. He jumps out of a window. This is kind of a barrel roll. It's a different way of falling.
He was okay after that.
No, normally when he jumps in these movies off buildings, he lands on his feet. This is more of a controlled dive. Was it, or what was the Toy Story way of describing it?
Falling with style.
Falling with style. Yeah, I wouldn't say there was a lot of style involved. But he was falling and waving his arms around. And he barrel rolls, he makes it, and then he rips through the electric fence. We get a little more electric effect.
Yeah.
More standard, fair, sparky stuff.
And they're not able to track him after he gets through the fence. He's pretty much scot-free.
Everyone gets scot-free. Everyone gets scot-free in this movie. Now, he's the only one who's camouflaged, but yeah.
Boy, I guess it's the Canadian wilderness. You just lose all signal when you're trying to pursue anybody through the Canadian wilderness.
Yeah, no cell service, no lights.
Yeah.
So at this point, the doctor is in a deep coma, and his wife's with him, and she gives him a speech, and she just thinks he needs to hear the right words to come back.
Which he does.
Yes, later on.
Just the dumbest words possible. That's what does it.
Yeah. At the same time, they show the wife a little bit of videotape we talked about earlier, where the only footage they have is Banner entering the lab, and they know from the chaos at the end that there was a woman and a big green monster there. And that's really all they know. And they think they're all in cahoots.
Should we introduce the government agents? It feels like a subplot that didn't go anywhere.
I think we could skip them.
Okay.
Unless you got something witty to say. Then I'm all for it.
I thought they were in cahoots with the Eastern Europeans until the very end of the movie. I thought they were...
No. They're just Tweedledee and Tweedledum.
They ain't great. Mulder and Scully, maybe? They ain't. We can go with Mulder and Scully. Yeah.
So this is where Natasha almost gets tortured with a paperclip. The boss is pretty upset that she didn't get the files. And with the doctor in the coma, they decide that they need to kidnap Banner. Because he's the only one... Well, I mean, they don't know he's Banner, but they need to kidnap the other guy in the room who was being experimented on.
The reason why she doesn't get tortured by Zed is because she calls out Kasha for being something of a hypocrite to whatever cause they're fighting for.
Which is never defined in this movie. We have no idea what the cause is.
That will come up again later in the movie when she confronts her sister. But it's an odd... You know, early in the movie, Kasha talked about that which we pray for. And not Tasha says, I don't know what you pray for anymore. You know, she's calling him out as a sellout businessman, all about the money and the highest bidder. But yeah, go ahead. So that's just an odd plot point that is not fully developed.
Yeah. So I mean, I guess at one point this Black Widow group had some moral high ground that they were claiming as they were doing whatever they were doing. Perhaps they didn't kill as many people back then. I don't know, but it's definitely become a power hungry, corrupt organization. Apparently, wanting to make super soldiers. I don't know. Not
everybody wants that.
Yeah. So, anyways, yeah. So she almost gets tortured by a paperclip, but they give her a second chance to go get Banner. So Banner's at the wife's house, or his mother's house, however you want to phrase it. And she wants David to go talk to Ronald and sneaks him out of the house. He doesn't get very far. As soon as he gets out, he's chased by a couple of big redneck trucks.
Which, again, I thought was going to be the United States agents, but they only put one agent by the house. So how did, and I'm going to say this, the Eastern European organization, they put all their best people in that particular place. How did they know for certain Banner was going to be hiding in the house of Pratt?
Well, it's not a bad choice to guess. They could have dropped a clue to make that a little clearer, but yeah, I agree.
So the pickup trucks are only there to herd him to the general store gas station, which is some Canadian saying I didn't know what it was.
Yeah, you can tell they're not trying to run him over. He's running. They're going just fast enough to keep up with him. He gets to this gas station. He breaks the window, gets in. Then Natasha aims a gun at him, says, "We're going to go and you're going to tell them everything. It's your only chance to live." But then once they get him, the two goons, they're going to go take out Natasha.
Brenny and Polly, that's the goons there. Brenny comes up later in the movie, if you remember.
Yeah. But David helps her. We get a little shooting match going on. She ends up shot in the arm. Polly ends up taking a bullet and dying. But before he dies, he makes the big reveal. Who is Shenko?
The Bella. It's sister. Bella.
Fake photo. Photoshopped. Fake news.
How can you believe anything anymore?
And then right after Polly says that, he dies, and David confirms, as if it wasn't obvious. And then she tells him, "You need to get out of here." He says, "I'm a doctor. I work for myself. I'll bill you later."
That's a great line. I like that. And that not only that, it builds off the previous movie with his character development.
Yeah. Yep. So she takes him to a cabin in the hills close to the research center. That's where she studies, apparently. I'm not sure what she studies, but
how is there an abandoned cabin that close to a government facility and nobody has tabs on it? And not only does the government not keep tabs on it, Natasha's Eastern European organization doesn't seem to know about it either because they never go there.
I mean, I don't know.
Man. So we see she has an apartment because her sister goes to her apartment afterward, but nobody knows about the cabin in the woods.
Well, it's probably a cabin some crazy person killed some other people in. So
fair enough.
That killer moved out and she moved in.
And this is
where, if this was a 2-part episode, where the second part starts. As we have a change in the plot at this point. And he stitches her up with a sharpened fishing hook. Ouch.
Oh, I like that. Like the Punisher would do something like that.
That looks so painful looking.
She can take
Not the actual process, they don't show it. But the instrument itself, I'd be like, can I take the paperclip? Can you sharpen the paperclip, please?
It is a good parallel with the paperclip torture scene that never happened. Like now we get a more advanced version used to remove a bullet, I guess.
So for this gunshot wound, it was in her arm. It didn't really look all that serious, but the hook is painful enough that she goes into shock. And, she basically cries out that she knows that he's the green guy. She assumes that the lab created him that way to make a killer machine. And then he's like, "I'm not the killer. Like, I'm not a killer. I was trying to be healed." So we'll talk about more in the morning. And he tucks her in.
That was our second of 3 naked lady backs in this movie. I don't know if that was like a different kind of thing for the series, but...
No, I don't think so. So I think they were just working on getting former Miss America, which she was.
I saw that. Yeah.
And tied to Bill Clinton.
I learned that because Elizabeth Grayson, Miss America 1982, Miss Arkansas 1981, that turns out is not just a coinky-dink that she had Arkansas connections because, well, her and Slick Willie, they had a little, what's the word we want to use for it? What kind of ties did they have back in Arkansas?
Yeah, I'm not sure.
Tat? They had a little tit for tat, maybe?
Yeah. And, well, they don't show those here. But anyways, they keep it relatively clean.
That's right, and I appreciate that. They got the point across very well for what happens later between Banner and Yasmin.
Natasha.
In the credits, they call her Jasmine. At no point in this movie did I ever hear anybody call her Jasmine. It's Yasmin. It's like,
Do the
not
Russians
Tasha.
pronounce their J's as Y's?
I don't know.
So, anyways, they're planting seeds there. In the morning, she gets up when she should be resting still and sees David writing a note. Basically, I'm going to go turn myself in. I won't say anything about you. And she's like, why would you turn yourself in? Well, I'm a spy. Come on, let's go.
Yeah,
And
he
she
said
wants to
it'll
repay
be
her
so.
debt, basically.
He said security will be very, very tight, or something like that.
Yeah. So she helps him basically go see the doctor.
It's an interesting plan. I like the way it works out. It's just a little bit curious. I don't quite understand why they had to call the fire department to say there was a jumper. What did that do to help them get in the hospital?
It seems like an extra step. Maybe back in the day you were supposed to call the fire departments because they had ladders.
But again, they still have to get in the hospital, and somehow they meet the fire department when they get there, and they send them on a wild goose chase while they go to Dr. Pratt's room.
Well, fire departments get kitty cats out of trees, and they get jumpers off of buildings.
It's a distraction. Tasha's big into... She's big into distractions, but they get to the room, and fortunately, Amy is there, and she's able to invent the fake story on the spot about this being her husband's psychologist. Yeah, psychiatrist. Thank you.
And then at this point, Banner gives a speech to make Vince Lombardi proud, and he's like, there's lots of reasons you need to come back. You created this problem for yourself. We all need you. And then he says, but really, I'm just being selfish. I need you. I want you back.
I don't think it's so much Vince Lombardi. I think it's Ronald Reagan from Newt Rottney, All-American, win one for the Gipper type of stuff.
Okay.
Ronnie.
Probably
Ronald.
some parallels. Well, yeah. Maybe the Water Boy, too.
Oh, that's the one right there. We can do it. They say that in this movie, don't they? That we can do it. We can go.
They do. They do. And ultimately, he gets him to wake up by telling him he's stinky. Because earlier in the movie, the doctor had told a story about how he used a stink bomb to stink up his school one time, and he got the name Stinky. So he says, Stinky, you're a menace. What the hell did you put in that thing? And the doctor kind of laughs himself awake.
Very appropriate.
And then, so they got to get out of there, right? So they sneak out. I guess, or all these people don't know what David looks like. All they do is put a white gauze eye patch on him, put an old man's sweater to wrap him up in so he can act cold, and then she pushes him out in a wheelchair right by everybody.
They really just kind of changed the robes around they were wearing. It's kind of very clever, and it's almost one take. I like that. Now, when they get out, their plan is just drive home. Work finished here, but unfortunately, they're followed by Bryn, or whatever it is. He's just kind of waiting there. For some reason, I guess he's keeping a watch on the hospital in case the doctor recovers, but he notices both of them. And then we get our chase scene.
Yeah, this chase scene was hard for me to keep track of. They're all driving the same kind of truck, and they're all equally dirty.
Yes. By the way, I appreciated how wet and muddy the previous scene was when they went to the gas station, but they never cleaned those trucks up. They didn't have the budget for that.
Yeah, I think it'd been long enough you'd think you get your truck washed. The Black Widow organization, they want clean trucks.
Yeah, definitely.
So they forced them to drive into a construction lot, and they get attacked by a couple of basically
cats.
Big digging trucks.
The cats, caterpillars.
And they take the teeth from the digger part, and they kind of jam it in both sides of the truck and lift it off the ground. And
this is a good scene.
Yeah, we get our fourth Hulk scene 68 minutes into the movie. And he hulks out, kind of...
He breaks the roof.
Yeah, knocks the roof off, and he grabs the machines by the forks.
Yeah.
And it's implied that he breaks the hydraulics in both of them and shuts them down. Like, they're trying to move them a certain way, and he's holding them in place, and it implies that they shut off.
And fortunately, we hear police sirens at the same time. I guess, yes. Fortunately.
And so she says, you need to run out. You need to run away. You need to run away. So he helps her out of the truck.
What a gentleman, green guy.
Absolutely. And then he runs off, and she gets away.
And I guess all the bad guys already ran away or drove away?
Oh, they were hightailing it.
They're afraid of the police? They just,
Yeah.
Bring on the sex scene, I guess. Let's see.
Is that where we're at? So, yeah, they make it back. Or she goes back to the cabin, and then David eventually winds back up there in his Banner state.
In the rain, still, I think. It rained a lot in this production.
Yeah. So they fall in love and they do things. And this is where you get the parallels to the modern MCU Banner Natasha romance, and she says, "Don't be afraid to hold me." And he says, "I'm not afraid. I just haven't had that kind of life in a long, long time." And she says, "Yes, a long time." And then they pretend to be lucky people and live out a short dream.
Well, that's a nice callback in the dialogue to what he told her earlier, that she was dreaming when he was.
Yep.
The dialogue is pretty good here, and most of the best lines are spoken by Elizabeth Grayson. I feel
Well,
like,
she learned from the best in 1982.
ooh, 81 maybe, 81, 82. But I feel like it's unfortunate because it felt like she could have been a much bigger actress than she ended up being. But I'd say before the 1990s, she was probably remembered for her accomplishments, being Miss America and, doing a little bit of acting. And then by the accolades, and then by the late 1990s, she's tied up in the whole Paula Jones and videotape, different kind of tapes, audio tapes. And apparently she declares bankruptcy in 1999. I read that on the Wikipedia page after everything
Unfortunately.
came out. With
So I guess the one who started her career ended up killing her career.
it's very
Choices.
possible.
Choices.
She has a look about her that I guess you could say it's more of the petite pixie. It's weird to me that she's basically an Arkansas gal, but she looks perfect for the part of the vaguely Eastern European lady. Even though she doesn't do an accent really, but she looks the part.
She's pulling off the pixie cut, which is kind of ahead of its time. I don't think it was really around yet.
There was another actress who was very popular around the same time. I think she's actually the same age. And I think she is sort of Eastern European, but her name was Natasha Kinski. And people compared her at the time to like a Marilyn Monroe for her screen presence. But her career, for whatever reason, I don't think she did a whole lot after the 80s. But they both have a similar look to me of Elizabeth Grayson and Kinski. And then I guess they kind of fall off the map as far as their filmography, it seems like.
Well, I mean, you have kind of peaked when you're in the Death of the Incredible Hulk for made for television.
I agree.
Movie. I mean,
you shouldn't expect
it's only going downhill.
I agree. If only there'd been a sequel to this. I feel like they could have. Where are we now? Are we on the? They've had their talk, right? They did the. Have they talked about the monster? No, that was earlier.
Oh, they're just happy right now. So they wake up and she wants to go away and leave it all behind and start their lives with this morning.
That's right.
She doesn't, and I don't think she expects a yes answer from him, but he says they can. And they get happy, excited.
And she says, "I'll make a new man out of you."
Yeah, all right. Literally. Social security number, all that good stuff. It's like, I know a guy in Arkansas that can help us.
That explains, I don't know how Banners keeps, I understand if you don't have to present a lot of details, you can impersonate whoever you want to, but how do you make up the social security numbers? I guess he has to know a guy somehow.
Yeah, I don't know. So we'll fast forward just a little bit here. So they're rolling the doctor out now that he's awake in an ambulance, and surprise, surprise, he gets stolen by the bad guys, and the incompetent cops lose them in an ambulance park.
And the lady has the right idea about the ambulances driving very oddly, but the dude is like, "Nah, it'll be fine. They're just trying to beat the stoplight."
So they take the professor and his wife to an airplane hangar where they're going to be leaving the next day. And the evil sister tells them, "Give us the formula by morning. I can't promise your safety once we leave." At the same time, back in the cabin, Natasha is listening to the radio, and she hears that the professor has been stolen.
Oh, she's keeping that to herself.
Well, she tries to. She turns it off, and Banner could tell she's upset. She says, "We need to leave now. We need to leave now." He's like, "What's going on here?" Like an old married couple already, bickering. And she's sad, and she tells him the truth. And basically, he's like, "I can't leave now." And she says, "But I can't stay."
Story of his life.
She is going to stay because she knows that she has to help him find them.
I love the scene that comes next. It's my favorite one in the movie.
Yeah, normally I would skip this scene for terms of brevity of getting through the podcast, but why don't you take it from here on this scene?
So
it's great.
She doesn't know where they're held, but she knows where she can get information. And it turns out Brinny, the Sug, works as a car salesman at a BMW place.
They don't pay these guys very well to be, Black Widow organization.
So Banner gets dressed up like he's Mr. Feeney in Boy Meets World. And he's got an umbrella and a mustache and a
Mustard suit.
whatever kind of tweed jacket he's got. And he says, "My good man, I must drive this thing off the lot today. I say today. Is it top of the line?" He says, "Oh, but it is the wrong color. What about the trunk space? You mind if we take a test drive?"
And what kind of test drive was that?
Well, it's like that Pepsi commercial Jeff Gordon filmed when he dressed up as the old guy. He's doing all the sharp turns and the burn wheelies and the going through all the lights. And
that's a fun thing they did, but really completely unnecessary.
It is unnecessary. And then there's a lady, very well dressed lady, who walks out in the middle of the road and slams on the brakes. And Banner, without missing a beat, says, "Oh, there's the wife. Come on in, honey." She picks up a bag. She gets in, and Brenny is not phased in the slightest. He's still thinking about making a sale.
Yeah, and then they confront him. She chokes him out somewhat. Says that he's going to take him to the doctor.
Yeah, we get a Godfather moment, choking out the Brenny here.
So he gives it up that they're at the airfield, and then Banner says, "Okay, now we can check the trunk. Show us how roomy it is." Commercial break. So they deliver the guy to the jail with a note to the police that they need to come to the airstrip because that's where the professor is being killed.
But they call the Mulder and Scully instead of getting people right out there.
Yeah. So then we have the final scene, basically. And they have this plan that the Black Widow is going to distract while Banner frees them from the room that they're being held in.
She's going to create a gas fire, is her plan.
Yeah. She's kind of going overboard with the fire. It looks like she's putting fire on explosives anyways.
I was disappointed that never got lit. Maybe it did.
Yeah. And then I can't tell if she got caught on purpose or not. But she gets caught by the guy who likes to play with paperclips.
Zed. Yeah. Paperclip guy.
They have a face-to-face with her sister. And they have an argument about what the cause is. Like, what is it?
Yeah.
They don't answer the question, of course. And then the Black Widow asks her if her soul's all gone. And we find out that she has no soul left.
Yeah. So they're negotiating on how they're going to kill Natasha.
Yeah.
They've done this throughout the movie.
Kasha basically says, if you're not man enough for the role you're in, I can take over. Which ends up getting killed here a little bit. But, you know.
Yeah.
And then she allows the paperclip man to torture her, is the plan. But we don't ever really get to that far. Because then the cavalry shows up. Yeah. Not just the Canadian military, but I think you got Mexico's military there too.
It's a shootout, and I feel like the shootout started before they wanted it to, as in Banner and Natasha.
Yeah, they were not very organized. This is, the Avengers had not quite assembled correctly.
Iron Man would have to wait until the movie that didn't get filmed. That's what I read.
So Banner had said, I'm going to get them to get them to the car, and we'll wait for you, but not too long. Basically, is the gist of their deal. So Natasha is pressured to get there, in a reasonable time.
Yeah, the same car the same BMW they drove off in from the lot.
Yeah. So Banner does free them. They go out the window of the room they're being held in. They get to the car. Hold on now.
They faked the window. You know that? They didn't go out the window.
Oh, yeah, you're right. Yeah, you're right.
They made them think they went out.
Yeah. So they get out. They're recognizing that the police are there. The bad guys, like, we got to bail. So evil Tasha gets on the plane with her pilot.
Paperclip guy. That's the guy. Yeah.
And then Cautious goes to get on the plane. And she's like, what do you think you're doing? And Bella Shenko shoots him.
He's not dead. He still shoots at somebody else before the movie's over.
Yeah. Well, I think he shoots at Banner. Because they're...
Yeah, he probably does.
Oh, maybe not.
And Tasha. And
there's all kinds of guns with no bullets flying around, taking people out.
Don't call Alec Baldwin.
We have the final scene, which is crazy paperclip guy is trying to run Natasha over with the plane before he takes off and leaves. So Bella's like, just get out of here. But he
tries to do it twice.
Yeah. And she rolls out of the way, even though you could tell she's about 50 feet away from the plane.
We don't want no Twilight Zone movie accident on this set.
Yeah. But David sees it. He's like, I got to go help her. And he runs and he hulks out on his way. And we get the fifth Hulk scene, 129 minutes into the movie. And he grabs the plane. Go ahead.
I was going to say, hulking out for the sake of her feels appropriate. What happens after that feels a little unnecessary to me, but proceed.
Okay. So he grabs the plane by the tail. He spins it around like it's on like an ice rink. He rips off the door and starts climbing in as the plane goes up. So he's up in the air now, and they get some altitude pretty quick.
Yep.
So it's implied at this point that they're a few hundred feet in the air. Again, very quickly. And she grabs her machine gun looking thing and she aims it. And then Paperclip guy says, "No, the gas tank." Even though at that point she wasn't aiming at the gas tank, I will say.
And she would have hit the back rudder or something.
Yeah. But then Hulk grabs the gun and points it down so he doesn't get shot. And she does shoot the gas tank. And boom goes the dynamite.
They cut it so weirdly. I feel like it loses a lot of momentum from how this scene should have looked when a plane blows up.
No, there's two things I think they did wrong. One is you get the worst CGI green screen / whatever practical effect graphic of the explosion, and you get a picture of Ferrigno kind of just in the middle of a screen waving his arms around and legs. But what they're trying to portray is him being blown out of the plane, probably upwards, make even more distance for the fall.
Yeah.
I think they should have just made a little animated thing there. Put 2 seconds of a cartoon in, like the old Monty Python. And then what they should have done at this point, that was mistake 1. Mistake 2 is they should have used the Lonely Man theme and dragged Falling out. Well, no. First we get a song called In Something Else.
There's a cue, though, of the Lonely Man in that at the beginning and the end.
That makes it worse. You think you're going to get the Lonely Man. And then you get something completely different.
Performed by Chris Ford and Courtship something. I don't know. And Something Ends is the official name of it.
So you get this melancholy song playing and the slow fall, which is really... And you get some really funny facial expressions from Lou Ferrigno, who's scared out of his mind.
How do you think they filmed that?
I don't know. I mean, he could have just fallen on a drop pad or a crash pad a few times, and they could slow down the film. But I'm not. Maybe they hung him by wires. He was kind of dangling.
The effect is not terrible, but the facial expression is not how you'd like to see the Hulk go out after all this series has been. Did you notice while he's fallen, they cut to the police and one guy made a crucifix with his hand?
Yeah.
What in the world?
Yeah, it was weird. Out of place.
How many people do that while somebody's falling out of a...
Well, he fell for a long time. So one thing they did really well was, they're at an airport hangar. There's no lights. But there's not just the plane, but there's a helicopter. So they have the helicopter spotlight on the Hulk as he's falling, and then later as he crashes. And that's like the only light in the picture. And I did like that effect.
It's not, as a death scene, it's okay. I question why it had to happen in the way it did, but it's an okay... Yeah.
The landing where he hits the concrete is pretty nice. They do a good job of that. Though the Hulk looks dead by the time he gets there. He's got a blank look on his face. After he had all these scared-looking faces on the way down, right before he hits, he's all calm and collected.
I feel like that's the kind of landing with the Hulk. It may not be fatal because he gets a clean landing right on his shoulders and arms.
Yeah, it's a flat back bump.
It gives a little bit. It cracks.
Yeah, but he transforms back in the Banner. Natasha begs him not to die. She says they can be free now. And he says, "I am free," and dies. And then you get the Lonely Man theme. As
everybody's watching
Mom
now.
and Daddy come over. Yeah. And I don't think they would have ended the movie like that had they not really thought they were going to have a fourth film.
I agree. But I don't know that what I've heard of the fourth film would have tied in properly to what this movie was going for.
Oh, no, it would have felt very standalone like all these have been. So ultimately, because of bad ratings or disappointing ratings and probably bad reviews, because everyone, target audience did not want to see Hulk die. This is put that way.
That's fair.
But they had intended to have him return in The Revenge of the Incredible Hulk with Gerald DePigo, I think that's how you pronounce it, as the writer. It would have featured the Peter David idea of the Hulk with the Banner's mind, which I'm not sure if that preceded Peter David's idea or not.
Mm-hmm.
So the rumor is that they didn't make it because Bill Bixby got sick with cancer. In reality, though, the movie had already been killed before that.
Mm-hmm.
And basically, the plot, according to DePigo, was that Banner would be revived, but no longer be able to change into the Hulk.
Lame.
Then he would work for the government to prevent accidents like the one that he did. But he'd be captured and forced to turn people into Hulk-like beings. And then the climax would be Hulk or Banner recreating the accident, and he turned himself to the Hulk again to stop the plans. I suppose that's where they would have worked in the Hulk's mind or Banner's mind. Maybe he plays with the formula.
What about She-Hulk and Iron Man? Are they rumored to show up in this other one?
Yeah, so I'm not sure about Iron Man if that was ever really considered. But She-Hulk seems more legitimate. Somehow that turned into Black Widow. That would have seemed like a very different script at that point. I'm not sure how you...
She-Hulk was supposed to be in this movie then?
Yeah, sorry, let's back up. Yeah, so She-Hulk and Iron Man would have been in the fourth one had they done it. Initially, on the writing of the Death of the Hulk, though, She-Hulk was supposed to be in the movie somehow, but it sounds like they were disappointed with some of the early drafts and costumes, and they killed that pretty quick. And that's when they got Black Widow, which, again, I don't know how you make this movie. It's an entirely different movie if you have that character change.
Oh, yeah. I don't think She-Hulk and Banner have a romance in any... Because they're related, right?
Well, in the comics, they are. I think.
Okay.
So they did... they started work on a pilot television show, or maybe even a movie, for She-Hulk. They never got off the ground. But in that one, there was going to be a blood transfusion with Banner, but they weren't related in that one. So
okay.
They were cousins in the comic. But yeah. So you have the end of the Bill Bixby, Lou Ferrigno run, basically.
I'd say it's a decent note to go out on. Again, it just feels like he died for nothing, though. Like, he didn't have to chase the airplane down.
Well, he was in Hulk state at that point. So when he starts to run, he's Banner.
He already saved his lady, and he already saved his adopted parents. So.
Yeah, but he saved his girl after he transformed on the way. So his plan may have changed. Once the Hulk got there, he's not thinking like Banner.
It's ironic because I wanted him to go after a Kingpin helicopter in the last one, even though he struggled with a helicopter in the previous movie.
Yeah, this Hulk, he needs to have 2 feet on the ground. He's not an aerial assassin, so to speak.
That's fair. 3 yards in a cloud of dust kind of guy there.
It's John Riggins right here. Mm-hmm. But yeah. So what would we what should be our scale here?
Oh,
barebacks?
Paperclips?
Paperclips or barebacks or
paperclips over the barebacks. Yeah, paperclips.
Okay. So a scale of 5 paperclips.
I come really close to giving it 4 out of 5 paperclips. There's just a few things that are odd to me that bring it down. I think we mentioned the odd momentum killers to different action scenes where everybody just kind of goes home at the end of the scene. Yeah. It just feels like he didn't die for a big enough reason. I'm not opposed to killing off the characters for the right reason. I would have loved if this was a part 1 movie of 2, the ultimate Hulk culmination of this series where, the government wants the super soldiers, whatever this terrorist organization want the super soldiers. Maybe you could figure out a role for Iron Man, and that somehow, man, even the fact that that he fornicates with not Tasha there, they could have done this a lot better than Superman 2, that just put Superman and Lois in the Fortress of Solitude and never mentions it again and has her forget about the whole thing by the end of the movie. They could have suggested she might have been pregnant with his child, and that could have been an interesting way to leave things hanging too.
Yeah. So I'll give it. So you're what, 3.5?
I'd say it's above 3.5. If we can go 3 3/4.
Okay.
Almost 4.
I'm gonna go 3.5. I like most of the movie. I give 4, maybe 4.5. But those little things, like it picks up points for the scene where he's in the suit behind the car. It's got some good stuff. I like the blackboard that they use in the lab. Like even as a kid, I like that.
What is that called?
Colors. It's like a whiteboard before there were whiteboards.
And everything is neon. It glows in the dark, so you never have to turn the lights on.
I kind of wonder if it was really clear and it just looked black.
I thought it was clear too. Yeah. It's like a laser tag place.
Yeah. So yeah, I think most of the movie is 4 to 4.5 stars. It just does enough things wrong in execution that I think it drags it down to 3.5-ish land. The end scene looks really corny the way they did it.
I feel like the best reason for Hulk to die is because if Banner is the last experiment and he doesn't want the creation of super soldiers on a mass scale for wicked means, I feel like somehow he takes the secret with him, like you're watching a Godzilla movie and you're Dr. Serizawa. I feel like that's a better way for him to go out, or at least give the appearance of going out.
Yeah, I mean, I will say that for this show in particular, this version of the Hulk, you either had to have a death of Banner, or you had to have him continue to be the lonely man. You can't have a happy ending. There's no happy ending for this Banner.
And we thought Peter Parker had it bad. Yeah. I kind of would have liked to have seen a situation where not Tasha and Maggie Shaw meet each other, and how that would have gone over. Are those the only 2 old flames of Banners that exist at this point? Is there anything from the series that he would have had a romantic fling hanging around that could have been brought up?
It's been so long. It wouldn't surprise me either way.
Because he spent 2 years with Maggie.
Yeah, he had a few that died in the series. So
his wife, right?
Actually, I'm not convinced they're actually married, but yeah. And then
okay.
in the first movie, he has a love interest developed throughout the.
All right.
And she dies. The women in Banner's life don't tend to do well.
Peter Parker as well.
So I think that wraps up the season. It's been a fun season.
What's the best movie we watched?
Well, we had Captain America 2.
Not those.
No, and then we did. I think Punisher was next, right?
Yeah, we did Howard the Duck first.
Oh yeah, that's what I left off. Howard. Howard's probably the best movie, honestly, since it was in theaters.
I'm gonna go with Punisher of what I remember.
So we had Howard the Duck, Captain America 1, Captain America 2, Punisher, Hulk Returns, Trial of the Hulk, Doctor Strange, Captain America 1990, Fantastic Four 1994, Death of the Hulk. Yeah.
So Punisher is number 1 for me. I'll go Howard the Duck number 2. I'm gonna go with this movie as number 3. Even though Trial is pretty good.
Fantastic Four wasn't horrible.
The bottom is gonna be Captain America 1990. That is the bottom, no doubt.
Yeah. No, I say Captain's 1990 is the worst. Doctor Strange above it, but it's probably next.
The 79 Captain America after that.
The first one?
Yeah, it'd be third from the bottom, I think.
Probably.
Yeah.
It's almost easier to work worst to best on these things. I would say Howard the Duck and Punisher, I like both of them probably equal in terms of how much I enjoyed them, but they're very different movies. I have a soft spot for Punisher. Always loved him growing up. So I probably would put Punisher 1 just because, and Dolph. I love Dolph. So I'll go Punisher, Howard. Trial in this one's like almost a tie. They nailed Daredevil. Daredevil and Black Widow, they got great.
Well, they didn't nail the costume, but
well, I mean, it was iconic enough they brought it into the comics. I might go Trial just because they weren't off-brand versions of Daredevil and Kingpin for all their faults.
It had Stan Lee in it.
Whereas it has Stan Lee, whereas this one has fake Tasha, not Tasha. If this was real Tasha, it might make a run.
Yeah.
So I'll go Trial and then this one, and then Returns, and then maybe Fantastic Four 94. I like it more than I should. What can I say?
I think I'll put the Fantastic Four film above Hulk Returns and the weird sore Donald, because Donald Blake is so annoying. We gotta downgrade.
I'm with you. I'm with you. So we'll do Fantastic Four, then Returns, and then I think it would be Strange, and then Captain America 1990. Oh, Captain America 2, we didn't really slide that in anywhere.
I would put it below Returns, but
maybe above Strange. I can't say that I like it better than Fantastic Four 1994.
Fair enough. I
like the plot, but they just didn't do much with it. Like, you didn't see people age.
That shield throw is so bad, it loses. As bad as the Johnny Storm Flame On is, there's no excuse why you can't pull off a shield throw.
Yeah. So I think that makes it Punisher, Howard, Trial, Death, Returns, Fantastic Four, Captain America 2, probably Captain America 1, Doctor Strange, Captain America 1990.
That's a fair ranking.
You could debate Captain America 1 and Doctor Strange. They're probably comparable.
It's a legitimate ranking right there.
All right. Well, that has been the podcast. We hope to see y'all or hear. Well, we never see you, so to speak, but we appreciate you all. Give us high scores on the reviews, and we'll see y'all next week. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.